Hello friends, my name is Bintou and welcome back to my channel and to my very first video for the year 2021. So even though today's video is going to be my December 2020 reading wrap up, I'm super excited to start this new year, and I've got some videos coming up in the coming weeks that are going to talk about some of my reading plans for 2021 and some of the goals that I have for books that I want to read, channel goals, and stuff like that. Like I said before, New Year's is one of my favorite holidays, so I've got a lot of big things planned for 2021, and I'm super excited to get the ball rolling on those. So let's get into the books that I read for December 2020. All right, so for the books that I ended up reading 10 books to completion in December, and I believe I actually ended up going over the 120 books for 2020. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. I need to consolidate all of that data at some point, but I definitely hit 120 books, which I didn't think I would, so I eventually got it and I'm super excited. December was the month where I really leaned into my genres, like the ones that I know and love. Of the 10 books that I read, 4 of them were mystery thriller, 4 of them were romance. I read 1 horror and 1 sci-fi. And then I've got 2 nonfiction books that I started in December but just didn't finish. So let's knock those 2 out of the way first. So the first one is A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I began this in December and I've talked about it in some of my books, and I still just haven't gotten around to reading it. And I think that this just wasn't a nonfiction month for me, because the other book that I started and haven't finished, this is called Financial Freedom, A Proven Path to All the Money You Will Ever Need by Grant Sabatier. So this is like a more informational book, and it's full of information that I'm very curious about, and this is really just more something that I recently picked up, and that's why I haven't finished it, but I know that I won't have any trouble getting this completed. My thought so far on this book is that if you're someone that's interested in personal finance enough, that you have done a lot of research on a lot of the material, there isn't anything super new in this book. But I did walk away with a few nuggets that I hadn't ever known or really thought about, and some practices that I'm planning to implement as well in this year. So overall, I'm glad that I picked this up, and I'm definitely going to finish it. So now let's get on to the books that I actually did finish. So the first book that I want to talk about is Layla by Colleen Hoover. Now, maybe some of you already know this, in fact, maybe a lot of you already know this, but paranormal romance as a genre, I had no idea that it was a thing. Now, I have to give praise to Colleen Hoover, because this is the 3rd Colleen Hoover book that I read in the year 2020, and this is the second one that kind of just took me by surprise. And I haven't picked up her books much over the past couple of years, but the ones that I've read of hers, I've been really impressed. Verity, super impressive. It made my top 20, if only for the fact that it was so shocking. And then Layla as well. It's a paranormal romance, and it involved this couple where something tragic happens to them at the beginning because of the guy's fame. They take this trip to the place where they originally met, which has been totally vacated, and they're just trying to kind of reset their relationship from there. And then enters a ghost or a spirit of sorts. And yeah, it's a paranormal romance where it involves someone falling in love with a spirit. Unlike any other romance that I've ever read, but I have to say I really enjoyed this. I also know from reading this book that paranormal romance is probably not going to be the genre for me moving forward. It's not something that I'm going to be reading very often, but I think that it's something that I will give a little bit more of a try in the future. At least one more book just to see what other things that the genre has to offer. Layla was definitely somewhere in the 4 to 4.5 star category for me. Overall, and it was a part of Kindle Unlimited too, so really easy to go ahead and grab that book if you have Kindle Unlimited. The next romance that was super popular, In a Holidays. So In a Holidays is all over BookTube. It's one of the romances that came out this holiday season, and for a good reason. I think this was just a whole lot of good fun. I really enjoyed it. I think I read it in one sitting, actually. Yeah, I finished the entire book in one evening, just because it's pretty short and very easy to read, and just a lot of fun. So In a Holidays follows this girl. She's in a cabin with her family and family friends during Christmas, and as her family is leaving, she ends up reliving the holiday. And basically, she's being forced to relive it until she can admit her feelings for one of the guys that is staying there. And that kind of pretty much summarizes what this book is going to be about. From there, you get to see their love story develop, just as any regular old romance. Like I said, nothing super groundbreaking, but I've never read a romance with this time travel aspect before. It reminded me a lot of like some sort of one of those, what are they, Hallmark movies that they come up with during Christmas time. Haven't watched them in ages, but I do remember there was one that I really enjoyed with like, I think it was like Mario Lopez and Melissa Joan Hart. I forget the name, but that was a lot of fun. It reminded me, it put me in that mood. But anyway, I digress. So now let's talk about some of the mystery thrillers I read this month that I really enjoyed. The first one was The One, and I picked this up because of Kenzie, who I follow on Instagram, and I'm gonna link her stuff down below, but she said this was her most favorite book of the year. So because I love mystery thrillers, I had to pick this up. And it was really quite good. So The One follows a group of characters, and this might be where the book's downfall lies, is that for the first 20% of the book, I was just so confused because there's so many different people and it's hard to keep track of who is who until you've seen enough of their story. And that was right around the 20% mark is when that happened for me. Anyway, there is this like company that exists that if you send in your DNA, they will find your one true match. So the person that is your genetic match for you, your partner. And so hopefully then the idea is that you two will just get together right away, and it's supposed to be super accurate because it's based on science, blah, blah, blah. And it's really interesting to see, basically this book takes a look at the couples and kind of how, I guess, a society that functions like this would happen. Because, you know, you think that there's somewhere you end up matching with someone who maybe is the same sex as you, but you consider yourself heterosexual for your entire life. Or you end up with matching with someone who has already passed away, or someone who lives on the other side of the world, or, you know, all of these issues that can come up. And then for couples that got together without a match, they're always like this lingering thought on the back of their head, well, what if we're not matched for one another? Which is another storyline that plays out. Overall, I think I haven't ever read a book like this before, and I really enjoyed it. I would give this about 4 stars. I don't think it was the #1 thriller that I read, but I did enjoy it and I'm super glad that I picked it up. And I'm definitely gonna be reading more John Mars. I'd never read anything by him, but this was impressive enough that I'm definitely gonna pick up more of his work. Next, I wanna talk about Cross Her Heart. This is a Kindle Unlimited mystery thriller, and this follows, it's the first of a series. It's going to be called the Bree Taggart series, and this was by Melinda Lay. Now I picked this up because I have actually read an entire series by Melinda Lay on Kindle Unlimited. I think it was like 1 or 2 years ago. It was I forget the name of the series. It followed a lawyer and Morgan Dane. It was the Morgan Dane series, and I really enjoyed that series. So when I saw that she has a new series, I picked it up, and I gotta say, I don't think this was as good as the Morgan Dane series, but I like it enough that I'm going to keep with the series. So I'm planning to read the second book, and then as the new ones get released, I will pick them up. So the main character, Bree Taggart, she is a police officer in Philadelphia, and she gets a call that her sister was murdered in their hometown, somewhere in upstate New York. So she has to move over there, and she's trying to figure out who killed the sister. She now has her sister's children that she has to take care of, and she also begins working with one of the former police officers in the department there. It doesn't turn into a romance, but like for sure, based on the other book that I read by her, or the other books I've read by her, it's definitely going to lead that way between those two characters. But either way, it is just a murder mystery, and we're trying to figure out, well, who killed the sister. And there's various suspects that come up. She kind of tries to lead you toward one way, and then it's like, oh, surprise, nope, this other person did it. Overall, if you're in the mood for a fun mystery thriller that is just, I mean, I would say that this is very typical of the genre. I got exactly what I was expecting, and I really liked it, particularly for the Kindle Unlimited mystery thrillers. So Across Her Heart, I think this one would be about a 3.5 star read. 3.5, yeah, 3.5 sounds about right. The next mystery thriller was Don't Look For Me by Wendy Walker. I don't remember why I picked this up. I think I found it and it was very highly rated, and I was looking for a very highly rated mystery thriller, and this one was pretty good. So it involves this woman. She is a mom, and she accidentally ran over her youngest child. And so the family is kind of dealing with this trauma where she believes that she killed her child, even though it was like a complete and total accident. And you know, her older children and her husband, like no one's really been able to deal with the trauma and forgive her or themselves for what happened. And so so she's like super isolated. She's driving between her son's college back home and wondering if anyone would miss her if she were to just leave. And then she gets kidnapped, and the kidnapper's trying to make it seem like she did just walk away from her family. And so the rest of the book is like her family, specifically her daughter, trying to find out where she is, what happened to her. It's a small town setting. We've got some local police officers working directly with the daughter to try to put together basically who done did it, who is the bad guy who stole the mom. And then you're also seeing it from the perspective, so it kind of flips back and forth between the mom that got kidnapped, and you're kind of seeing her experience in her captivity. I think what makes this book super fascinating is the trauma that it deals with. It's like this unimaginable thing that you just hope never happens to you or anyone that you know. But it's something that like it happens, and it's interesting to see this author explore what happens to a family after this trauma. I would say that this one was at least 4 stars, maybe 4.5 stars. It was really good. And then the last mystery thriller that I read, I will get through this one really quickly. It was Coast to Coast Murder by James Patterson. And there's another author who I can't remember off the top of my head. And this one, I think I gave it about 3 stars. It was recently released, and I had put it on hold at the library, and it just became available for me in December. So I have been waiting for a while for it. I don't think that it was worth the wait. It was just kind of very haphazard. So what happens in this book is there is this serial killer who has been murdering people all over the country, and they find the guy they think is responsible for it, and you know, he is taken into custody, but he claims he's innocent. And they're trying to figure out, well, how does this make sense when all of the evidence points to him? So it's one of those stories where like all the evidence is pointing to this one person, but this one person says that they didn't do it, and it's starting to look like they're innocent. And the question is, well, how is this possible? There's some psychological manipulation in here where the main thing is like the split personality disorder that these weird scientists are trying to invoke in these children that they have adopted. A lot of crazy family dynamics going on in this book. And then I would say that in the end, it's one of those endings that I think is meant to like leave you thinking, but really it more just left me disappointed. This one was not the best mystery thriller that I read this month or even this year. It wouldn't be very high on my list of recommendations. Now let's talk about the 2 outliers, the sci-fi and the horror. So one of the things I wanted to do was pick up more sci-fi, and then in the comment section of that video on my reading stats for 2020, I know Josh recommended the Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, so I picked that up. And it was fantastic. This was definitely a 4.5 to 5 star read for me. And I'm going to pick up more Blake Crouch because I really enjoyed this book. So Dark Matter, it is a sci-fi, but it does also read like a thriller, which he mentioned. And because I love thrillers, this was kind of a neat way to tie in those 2 genres for me. So the book starts off with this guy who's just going about his life, and then suddenly he gets accosted on his way home, and he gets driven, or he has to drive his kidnapper to this place where he gets put into this like pod of sorts, and he wakes up in a completely different world than the one that he knows. And most of the rest of the book is just him trying to get back to his world. And so a lot of the sci-fi elements involve all of the different worlds and possibilities that open up for depending on all the different decisions that you make. There was definitely some like quantum, so like it brings like Schrodinger's cat into the conversation. Yeah, it was super neat. The one thing that I wish was we found out what happened. So if you read this book, you'll know what I mean. What happened to the girl, the partner that he was with until they split up. That's the one thing that I want to know, having gotten to the end of this book. This is also definitely one of those books where you finish it and you're just like wondering, like it really makes you wonder, what if this actually is a thing, this like multiple worlds theory that exists, and what if like something like this actually happened? It's so crazy. And I think I was reading reviews and someone said that this is kind of like how all of his books are, in which case like I'm down. I'm gonna pick up all of the Blake Crouch that I can get my hands on in the coming year. And then the horror that I read this month was The Good House by Tananarive. This book was fantastic. This was, I think, 4.5 or 5 stars for me. If I knocked off anything, oh wait, I think I did. It was because of the ending. Now, it's a horror book. So we've got a house, an old house. There is some haunting that goes on in this house. So the book is actually set in Washington State. So in the state that I live in. And the town, there's this little town, it's called Sacagawea. In the town, this Black family lives in this old house that has been in their family for a couple generations. And they go there for a summer party, and this super tragic event happens where the son, he shoots himself. And this happens like really, really early on in the book. Now, from there, we start to learn a little bit more about what happened in the days leading up to those events. There's some voodoo involved, some ancestors. I would describe this as kind of like a Black version of some like meshed together Stephen King novel. And not to take away from the book in itself, because it was fantastic. But if you like Stephen King's work, then I think that you will like this book. Again, the only sad part I think was the ending, because the ending to this book, I feel like really undermined a lot of the story, and almost, without giving like a lot of ways, served to erase all of the buildup. And it was so good. So it kind of sucks that it had to go as far as it did. I think that there could have been a way to make the ending like a happy ending, but without sort of erasing all of the work that she did in the book. Because of this, I definitely hope to pick up more of Tananarive's book. That's probably where a lot of my horror will come from next year. And I'm looking forward to it. It is a long book though, I will say. This took me a while to get through, and I can't remember how long the audiobook was, but it's on the longer side for sure. All right, and then that leaves the 2 romances that I read. The first one, Crazy Stupid Bromance. This is another one of the newer releases from Lissa K. Adams, part of the Bromance Book Club series. And Crazy Stupid Bromance, I'm like forgetting, because this was one of the first books that I read this month. So it's been a while. So my favorite thing about these bromance book series is just how funny some of them really are. And I would say the funniest part of this book was the cat. So the 2 main characters we've got, it's a friends to lovers book. So the male and female lead are really, really good friends, and they're helping each other out. But the female lead owns this like cat, and the male lead, every time he like comes over, there's just like this hilarious showdown between the 2 of them, some of which it's like actually really funny. But anyway, so in this book, the female lead, she is discovered by family that she didn't even know existed, and just in time too, because they really need something from her, and it's not even a small favor, it's like really, really massive. And she doesn't know what to do, so her and her male friend, they are kind of working together, trying to figure out what she should do. And over the course of them, I don't know, trying to solve this issue, they become closer. And he's trying to support her in whatever it is that she decides to do, even though he doesn't necessarily agree with her decision. Another super fun addition to the Bromance Book Club series, and I'm definitely going to pick up, I think there's one more in the works that's supposed to come out in the summer, I believe, of 2021. I'm definitely going to pick it up. I'm going to keep reading this series. It's a lot of fun. And then the last one was See Me After Class. And I don't know how many of you are, or how often you guys read books that involve your professions, but the reason I was intrigued to pick this up is because the 2 main characters are teachers. That being said, this book kind of fell short, and I don't know if maybe I was a little bit harsh on it because it felt so, actually, I don't think I was. So what ends up happening is, so we've got these 2 teachers, this new one, it's like her first year, she starts at this super high achieving school, and she's butting heads with one of the teachers in her department because her style is very different from his. I think that, I mean, yes, it's a romance, and yes, this is one of the steamier romances, but I still think it was so unrealistic. And I couldn't get over how annoyed I was with how poorly the main female character was able to take criticism. I don't know, again, I was definitely reading too much into this. It's just a book. But it was definitely my least favorite of the romance novels that I read this month. That being said, it is a pretty quick read, and was this Kindle Unlimited? I think so. I'm not sure that I loved this particular author's style though, so I probably won't be picking up too much more of her work. And those are my 2 cents on that book. All right, guys, that is the end of my December wrap up. Those are all the books that I read in the month of December. I want to take a moment to thank all of you guys for sticking through this video and just with my videos in general on this channel. It's been a long ride. It's been like 7 months, but still, it's a lot of work putting together these videos, getting them uploaded and edited and thumbnails, blah, blah, blah. There's so much. But it's so much fun, and reading the comments that you guys leave in the comment section makes it all the more worthwhile. So as always, thank you truly for watching my videos, and I will see you in the next one.